What is up, everybody? Happy May. After a really weird half of March and April, we are already into May, and hopefully a return to normalcy comes sooner rather than later. Hopefully you are healthy and happy out there while we are all dealing with this crazy situation that is the coronavirus. A couple of things I want to hit on before we get to our guest today. If there was anything that ever proved that the NFL draft is a inexact science, it's the class of 2017. I've always said that the first round in the NFL draft really has about a 50% hit rate, and that is holding true for the top 10 of the 2017 draft class. We get news last week that the Bears were declining the fifth-year option for their young quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. Of course, Nick Foles now in Chicago to compete with Trubisky, but that fifth-year option not picked up for Mitch. So that now means that 4 out of the top 5 picks in that 2017 NFL draft did not get their fifth-year options picked up. Trubisky at number 2, Solomon Thomas at 3, Leonard Fournette at 4, and Titans wide receiver Corey Davis at 5 all had their fifth-year options declined. I find that absolutely fascinating. And how about this? Dez Bryant getting his boxers all in a bunch because the Cowboys made the wise move to go out and sign Andy Dalton as a backup quarterback. Dez says, let's get Dak paid. Tony Romo got a couple of good deals, and Dak's still waiting for his first huge contract as the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Dak's going to get paid. Sign that franchise tender. You're going to get $31 million this coming year. You're eventually going to be the highest paid quarterback in football. That's where he wants to be. Remember last fall, it was reported that Dak turned down $33 million per year. He wants to be the highest paid guy in the league right now. And right now, that's Russell Wilson at $35 million a year. Ben Roethlisberger right behind Russell at 34. And then it's Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff at 33.5. Kirk Cousins at 33 and Carson Wentz at 32. The franchise tag has Dak slotted behind those two guys right now at $31 million. But as I said, he hasn't signed that yet. He wants that long-term deal. And you know what? He deserves it. He absolutely deserves it. I just don't understand anybody being upset with the signing of Dalton. This isn't about Dak. This is more about Dalton and Cooper Rush, who was slated to be the backup quarterback. The deal that Dalton signed could be worth up to $7 million, but only $3 million is guaranteed. And Cooper Rush had a deal that was going to have $2.1 million guaranteed. So if you're Jerry Jones and the Cowboys and something happens to Dak next season, the season's not over. They have Super Bowl aspirations, obviously, in Dallas. They had CeeDee Lamb to that offense. It should be explosive. Ezekiel Elliott has to be pumped because they're not going to be able to put 8 men in the box anymore. So here's the deal. If Dalton is your backup quarterback, which he is now, you have one of the best backup quarterbacks in football. If Dak goes down, all is not lost. The season is not over. You still might be able to win a playoff game or two. Well, that's a good point. Now that I think of it, Dalton never did win a playoff game, but he did get the Bengals there 4 or 5 times during his career in Cincinnati. He's a better backup quarterback than Cooper Rush. And speaking of those Cowboys, a man who was a thorn in their side for many, many years, my buddy DeAngelo Hall is our guest this week, a 14-year NFL veteran, a 3-time Pro Bowler who was the 8th overall selection of the Atlanta Falcons, has some great stories about his 4 years in Atlanta. Michael Vick was the quarterback there. D. Hall lived through that dogfighting scandal, then signed a massive deal, $70 million to go play for the Raiders, only to be cut 8 games into that deal. What the hell happens with that? We're going to get to the bottom of that story. And then he leaves to join the Redskins the same year. During his time with the Redskins, picked off Jay Cutler 4 times in 1 game. We'll talk a little bit about that. Has some tremendous rookie stories as well from his time there in Atlanta. Jim Mora, his head coach there. He has a Mora/Ferrari story that he tells us about, and then goes a little bit into partying in Vegas with Paris Hilton and David Hasselhoff, a couple of stories you are not going to want to miss with DeAngelo Hall. Our guest on episode 4 of the Helliepod, presented by Viore. Let's roll. It is the latest edition of the Helliepod. I didn't tell you what the name of the podcast was.
The Helliepod. I like that. I like that.
DeAngelo Hall, 14-year NFL veteran, 3-time Pro Bowler, shares the NFL record with 4 interceptions in a game. If I remember correctly, that was courtesy of Jay Cutler in Chicago, right?
Yeah. Jay gave me a couple gifts, so put me in the record books. So much obliged. Thank you, Jay.
Was there ever an official thank you card that you sent to Cutler?
Nah, it wasn't. I probably should have, but his arrogance was, it was a turnoff. So I didn't send him a thank you card.
Understandably, understandable why you didn't do that. Are we going to see DeAngelo Hall, currently working for the NFL Network, did some work with Fox last year? Are we going to see you become an assistant general manager first or a coach in the NFL first?
Oh, man. That's a tough question. I don't know. You'll probably first. I don't know. I have no clue. And the problem is, I'm passionate about both. Like, I understand how you put a football team together to win games. I have my philosophies and how I would like things done as far as building a winning type of culture. But on the reverse of that, I like helping develop talent as well. I like being on the football field, trying to coach up young guys. Unfortunately, toward the end of my career, the last 4 years, I didn't get to play much. I was always hurt. And so, I was able to kind of mentor a lot of the young DBs and, reach out and coach some of those guys. And, I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I would, and coaching was definitely never on my radar. But I had so much fun doing that, I feel like I got so much knowledge that, I need to share it.
I feel like you got those 4 years. I kept waiting for you to retire, and then it would be 3 games, 11 games, 3 games, 2 games. But you lasted 14 years in the league, and you came in when you were just a baby. So you went from kind of the young superstar to the old wily veteran almost overnight. Yeah.
And a lot of bumps in the road along the way. I can remember, forcing my way out of Atlanta, ended up in Oakland, getting cut in 8 games in Oakland, and people thinking, he must be this crazy dude. And then finding my way to Washington and signing back with Washington, and then just the up and down of just football life in D.C., as you know, firsthand covering the team. It's been a whirlwind for sure, but it does feel like I came in as a 20-year-old dude who couldn't even go on a bar. And I left, a 34-year-old man with kids and a family. And, it's been a long road for sure.
That is the outline of just about everything we're going to talk about today. You came out of Virginia Tech. You were second-team All-American. You got a lot of pub because, like Charles Woodson in college, you played on both sides of the ball, had 3 touchdowns in one game. You're the 8th overall pick by Atlanta. And as you alluded to, you were super young, man. Came in at just 20 years old, couldn't even legally drink. What was that like, and what do you remember most about that first year going from Blacksburg to Hotlanta?
Yeah, I really remember leaving Blacksburg, not really wanting to leave, not knowing if I was ready or not. But college had just almost became too easy. I would go through stretches of a game in college and not have a team throw the ball my way. I also return punts. Every team would kick it out of bounds. And so for me, as a young player, I felt like the only way I could help my team win was to try to affect the game, try to make a play. And being put in all those situations and not being able to help my team and make a play, it was probably the most frustrating thing I went through as an athlete, especially being a young kid. And so, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to try to at least see if I could, go in the draft. And I turned my name in, and they had me, I think, maybe a second-round pick or something. And I'm smiling, laughing because I'm such a competitor, and you probably I know you know this. And so when I saw all the other dudes in front of me, I was just like, I started watching the film, but I kind of already knew some of the names, and I'm kind of watching them, and they not really getting out of their breaks, and they kind of in really good schemes, and they got, a lot of talent around them when you think of guys at USC and Texas and, Miami and Florida. And so, I'm just smiling like, if they think them dudes are better than me, I'm going to be the number one corner, hands down. And that was my mindset. And so for me, it was like, all right, I'm going into the draft. And I never imagined I would be a top 10 pick. I just knew at the end of the day that I'm a competitor and I'm going to compete. I'm going to be a lot faster than people think because of my track background. And I've always played corner. I'm not a track guy who's a corner. I'm a corner who just happened to run track and be really, really fast. And so, I get thrown down in Atlanta. Never once spoke to the Falcons through the whole process, but did have Michael Vick down there, who was a little bit of a connection. Didn't know him a whole lot.
He left Tech the year before you got there?
He left Tech the year before I got there, but doing my recruiting trips and stuff, I met him a couple times and things like that and hung out with him. And so, and then even when I was in college and he was in the league, he would come back because his younger brother was there. So he knew who I was, obviously. And so maybe he was real instrumental in getting me down to Atlanta. But, Coach Moore, Jim Moore Jr., he was a DB guy, grew up coaching DBs and, being a coordinator. And so, he ended up getting the Atlanta Falcons job. And, I was his first draft pick. And even to this day, almost 20 years later, 18, 19 years later, I was talking to Jim the other day. So, I mean, we're still super, super close. And it was a special time for sure. But, it was when Atlanta was kind of the hip hop capital of the world, man. Music was going big down there. Obviously, Michael Vick and that whole, Michael Vick experience was kind of going through the NFL. He was on the cover of Madden.
He was essentially the face of the NFL at that time. He was exploding.
NFL. Absolutely. I remember we got sent to play in a preseason game in Tokyo, Japan. And we were playing the Colts. And it was dubbed like Michael Vick versus Peyton Manning. And, and Marvin Harrison, Dwight Freeney, I mean, all these other stars, myself, Keith Brooklyn, Patrick Kearney, we had our stars, they had their stars. But it was Mike versus Peyton. I mean, we all knew it. And just to see the hundreds and hundreds of media at the Tokyo Dome just all gathered around Mike and Peyton, it was crazy. I mean, it was a time where, he was a rock star for sure. Everywhere we went, it was like walking. It was like you hear about the MC Hammer trips and Deion Sanders going to games. It was like that with Mike for sure.
He was in his fourth year when you got there. Yeah. Mora, I believe, was in his first year.
His first,
right? And you said he was a DB guy. We've talked about Jim Mora before. By the way, Jim Mora has been in here on the 900 Club in Manhattan Beach. He lives in the area.
No doubt.
Doing some stuff for ESPN and eventually going to get back into coaching, I'm sure. But you said Mora kind of gave you free reign, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was a little bit of a gift and a curse. It was a curse because as a young player, not really understanding how the league worked, and being such a good player, I kind of felt like rules didn't apply to me sometimes. And, it was good and bad. It brought the best out of me. It allowed me to kind of be myself. I was always kind of a free spirit. I always loved talking trash, whether that was in practice or in games. I got a lot of penalties, which, wasn't always good for the team at times. But I was a young player. I was a young, selfish player who, no matter what the older guys said, Jim kind of let me be me. And it was almost to my detriment. But he was always able to rein me in, either him or Mike or a couple other guys who were kind of Virginia Tech guys who, who knew me and I respected. Well, they were always able to kind of rein me in. But, I remember one story. We were going on a team outing, and Jim was like, everybody has to ride the bus. And I'm like, man, I got this new Ferrari, man. I'm not riding this bus. And, I let the top down on my Ferrari, and everybody's everybody's expecting Jim to be like, man, get your young butt out this car. You riding with everybody else. Jim hops in the passenger side and we take off and go to the outing. So, it was just things like that. But I always brought it on Sundays, and I think that was something that was kind of instilled in me early, that if you go out there and you ball and you make plays and you help us win games, we can kind of accommodate the foolishness from time to time.
There are not the same rules for every player on a football team.
No.
You had to plan a trip to Vegas for the DB group.
Yeah.
And that had a crazy ending, didn't it?
Yeah. It had an unreal ending. So instead of really hazing the rookies, they want to haze your pockets. So as opposed to haze you physically, we're gonna haze your bank account. And I was a top 10 pick, so I had a little bit of money, and my older guys, my veterans in the room was like, look, you got to buy all us flights to Vegas, book, set the rooms up, book the rooms, and you got one night out. You got to take us out one night. We're gonna party. We're gonna do it up. And I'm like, all right, cool. So we have actually 2 rookies that were drafted that year, myself and then another DB.
Michael Jenkins?
Well, no, not the first rounder though.
Oh, okay.
We had Ettrick Pruitt.
Gotcha.
Who was drafted a 6th rounder, I think, out of Mississippi State, safety. And obviously because I was the first round draft pick, I was like, look, I'll pay for everything if you set it all up. So he set everything up.
He was your traveling secretary for that trip.
Yeah, it was either let's split it
hey,
or set
I'm sure
it up.
He was fine with it, by the way.
He was absolutely fine with it. And so he set it up, I paid for everything, and we get to the club, and I can't even remember what club we at, because this has since been gone.
That's 16, 17 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
The club might even not exist
All I remember is David Hasselhoff was beside us, living it up, partying, and Paris Hilton was on the other side. And the bill came back probably about, I don't know, $3-4 grand. And I went to go pay the bill, and just in the midst of just partying and having a good time and just interacting with everybody, she snatches my bill, and
Who?
Paris Hilton snatches my bill, and don't worry about that. And I'm like, no, and we going back and forth, and then I just,
You relented.
Right, you got it. And one of my homies at the time was like, you know who that is? And I'm like, nah, she's hot though, And they're like, man, that's Paris Hilton, da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, for real? And by the time I knew it, she had already taken the bill, paid the check, and her entourage was kind of out the door. And I always thought that was a pretty cool way to end my rookie year for sure.
And that was your first trip to Vegas?
Yeah, my first trip to Vegas.
And by the way, that was the heyday of Paris Hilton. Everything the Kardashians are now, Paris Hilton was kind of the original. Yeah. And then in terms of Q rating and name recognition, she was one of the biggest stars in the world at that time.
Yes, she was. I was only a couple months I turned 21 in November. Our season was over mid-January, so it was probably out there February. So to say I barely remember is an understatement. So if you get my drift.
No, I get you. I get you. That rookie year, is that the year you guys went to the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, that's the year we lost to Andy Reid's Philadelphia Eagles. A TO-less Eagles team, by the way.
Because his ankle was hurt.
His ankle, yes. That was a game we should, oh my goodness. That's the one regret in my career. And I've never went back and watched the game, but I know I just approached it like another game. Like I did not know the magnitude of what was going on. I didn't really realize, man, I'm a game from the Super Bowl, because I've never been back. I've never been back to that moment. And 14 years of playing and of trying to get back to that, it's like, damn, if I'd have known, the sense of urgency, because I was right there on the cusp, because I've always said that's what kept bringing me back, was I want to play in the Super Bowl. Like, I don't even care I care if I win or lose, but I want to experience that one time, because to cover it in the media and be around it and see it on TV is such a grand event. And to be a part of something like that, oh my goodness. Because I know if I ever was a part of it, it was nothing that I wasn't going to do to win that game. And so that's why I'm not saying I want to win a Super Bowl. I just want to play, because I know if I play, I'm a damn sure win for sure. I mean, I'm going to leave it all out there. But yeah, to be that close as a rookie, and in college, I ain't even playing a BCS bowl game. You know, I played in the Diamond, and we joke all the time, all the analysts and stuff. I'm like, dude, I played in the Diamond Walnut Bowl, the Insight.com Bowl, and the Gator Bowl. The Gator Bowl was a pretty good bowl, but I mean, 2 of those were on a baseball field. And one of them, both teams were on the same sideline. And we played Air Force, and they didn't throw the ball but twice. And so, yeah, my bowl game experience wasn't very, very good. But as a rookie to be in the NFC Championship game, and it's like a BCS bowl, you're like, what? This is pretty easy. And definitely underappreciated that moment, man. But you know,
is that one of the?
Wish I could do that again.
Is
sure.
that one of the things the 36-year-old D Hall would go back and tell the 20-year-old D Hall?
Yes, sir.
Cherish this more.
Absolutely, and even just cherish just so many of the relationships along the way. You know, I think I was so tunnel visioned early on to be great. You know, to prove everybody wrong, to be great. Because even though I was a top 10 pick, you know, it was a lot of people that didn't know who I was. You know, I think Jim just fell in love with me. Him being a DB guy, and I also think Michael Vick being there and being from Virginia Tech probably didn't hurt. If Mike was somewhere else, I probably don't end up in Atlanta. Who knows? But, you know, I just think it was the perfect storm. And so, you know, even though I was a top 10 pick, I still have always felt through the course of my career that I never really got the respect I deserved. And so it's always put a chip on my shoulder to just grind. But, yeah, early on, I was so just locked in on being great individually that, you know, I probably wasn't the best teammate. You know, I would definitely admit that I was not the best teammate early in my career. It wasn't probably till I got to Washington and really got around Mike Shanahan and Raheem Morris and, you know, some of those other coaches that really challenged me to, you know, be more than just a great player. You know, be more than that. Be somebody your teammates can turn to, can talk to, you know, about certain things, and, you know, be a leader. And, you know, that's probably when my whole just approach to the game of football kind of shifted a little bit.
I'm sure a lot of the things that happened in Atlanta and then Oakland molded you as you became an older player. How much did what happened to Michael Vick in terms of the dogfighting scandal kind of raise your awareness of this could all end tomorrow?
Oh man, you know, I think everybody at that moment in time, and, you know, anybody who was a part of sports felt like, oh man, like this is crazy. You know, like it can, you know, we aren't invincible, because a lot of athletes feel like, and entertainers for that matter, anybody with money feels like they can always buy their way out of any type of trouble. And a lot of times it end up working out that way. And, you know, it's not always fair, but that's just the way the world works, unfortunately. And so the whole Michael Vick situation and what it did to sports, it made the athlete, the entertainer, feel as though, look, I'm not invincible. You know, it humanized everybody else. And, you know, I was obviously sympathetic to both sides, obviously knowing Mike and, you know, being a, you know, a pet owner. I love animals. I, you know, have dogs, have always grew up around dogs. You know, I couldn't really understand it either. But I did feel as though the punishment was a little harsh, being that I knew Michael Vick. And selfishly, I was thinking about my football team. Like, how are we going to win football games without
sure. Human nature,
our quarterback? And so it made for a tough transition in Atlanta. And I think it ultimately led to my departure. You know, I openly supported Mike throughout the whole process because, you know, regardless, just as a parent or a sibling, that has another sibling who commits a crime. You're not gonna stop loving that person because they committed the crime. Like, they did what they did. They got to own up to it and serve whatever is handed down to them. But as a friend and a person who's known him for years and years and years, I support him through the whole process. And so, I don't think it bode well for myself through the whole process. And like I said, I was a young dude.
You mean you supported him? Because you would come out with T-shirts
I would come out with T-shirts and things like that, and not really fully understanding the scope of things. Like I said, I just was supporting my friend, and I would do it all over again. But I think the organization was at a crossroads where they wanted to kind of move away from certain things and and people. And I was kind of swept along with that. And so, my time in Atlanta was fun. I tell people all the time that, I was joking with somebody on their staff, and I was just like, man, why I don't never get no invite for like all the alumni events and things like that? I'm like, I'm probably the second best corner in your franchise history, just laughing and joking around. But, hopefully I can get brought back into the fold now that I'm actually done playing, and I always root for those guys.
Will you ever be back in the fold in Oakland? That was 8 games in Oakland, man. You signed a $70 million contract in Oakland and lasted 8 games.
I know.
What the hell happened?
Honestly, Al just told me flat and simple, I thought we were going to be better than we were. I can't pay you the $17 million bonus you got next year. And I was like, okay. He was like, can you restructure? I'm like, man, I'm not going to restructure. Like, I've only got 9 of the, 20-something guaranteed I'm supposed to get. I get 17 next year. I'm not going to restructure. I'll restructure after I get that 17. And he was just like, we're not going to win many games. Our quarterback's not very. And at the time, the quarterback was Jamarcus Russell. Everything he was saying was making sense.
And Lane Kiffin was the head coach?
They had already fired Lane by that point. I was the last guy to basically sign. That was the offseason. He kind of read up a couple guys when he got Javon Walker, who ended up never playing again, I think. Jabril Wilson was brought in. Nnamdi Asomugha was playing under a franchise tag at corner. They had paid Ethnic Sands. I think Derek Burgess had got a little new money. I mean, at that point, I don't know what happened, but I was paying everybody, and I didn't have nowhere to go because the trade didn't work out between Jacksonville, didn't work out between the Giants, didn't work out between the Redskins, and so it was either go back to Atlanta, and I had kind of already burnt that bridge with Thomas Dimitroff, who was the new general manager at the time, or go to Oakland. And so I was like, even though the language in the contract, because we saw that they could get out of it after year 1, it was still double what I was going to make in Atlanta, and I thought it was going to work out. I thought we were going to be a really good football team. We were pretty loaded on defense, but didn't have the best quarterback suited for our offense, and so we didn't win many games.
Quick break to introduce you to our presenting sponsor, Viore Clothing. If you have not tried this gear, you are doing yourself a disservice, because I think it's absolutely fantastic. This is a new perspective on performance apparel, and it's awesome. It looks good. It feels good. They have joggers for both men and women. They have great shorts for men and women. I love their core short. They have a liner inside. It's one short every sport. You can wear it on a run. You can wear it around the house. You can wear it to sleep in. You can wear it to mow the grass. You can wear it to go to the beach. You can wear it for yoga. The men's core short, fantastic. I also enjoy the Banks short, and I'm currently wearing one of their shirts right now. Great material. You can wear it around town. You can wear it to the grocery store. In this day and age, you can get a matching mask if that's your flavor. But VioreClothing.com/Helliepod is where you can try this stuff out and get a 20% discount today. That's VUORI clothing.com/Helliepod to get 20% off today. Give it a shot. I promise you, you're going to like it. Great gear. This is what I wear almost every day. back now to our interview with D. Hall.
So you last 8 games in Oakland after signing a $70 million deal, and that's what's so unique about the NFL. $70 million doesn't mean $70 million. You made $8 or $9 million there in those 8 games.
Yep.
And I'm a local sportscaster in D.C., and you are from Virginia, and that was kind of your hometown team that you grew up with.
Yeah.
And you end up coming to Washington, I believe, was it in 08 or 09?
It was the middle of the 08 season.
Middle of the 08 season. And Jim Zorn's the head coach. And I'm like, this is going to be interesting. Because I didn't know you, but I obviously knew of you. And I thought you were going to be a real interesting addition to the locker room that already had some big personalities, Clinton Portis among them.
Yeah.
And you came in that season, you guys finished 8-8. I think Zorn lasted one more year. And then Shanahan came in. And you had already signed your new deal, which was a big fat deal there for, I think, a $50 million contract. And you said Shanahan, as you alluded to earlier, really challenged you to be a leader in that locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. Mike's whole approach was just holding guys accountable, wanting guys to give of themselves for the team. He had that old school mentality. Mike wasn't about a whole lot of talking. He wanted you to show him. He wanted you to practice hard. He expected you to practice hard. And in turn, he treated you like a man. He took care of you when you needed to rest, but he worked you hard too. Brought in a lot of young coaches that as a player who was, in the middle of my career, I didn't really know what to think at the time. I was kind of like, man, we got all these young dudes, because a lot of them were even younger than me. And I was a pretty young dude then. And so, we didn't know what we were kind of getting involved in. But, just watching those guys coach and those guys just kind of handle their business and just seeing how smart they were, we knew we had a chance to be a really good football team. We just had to do the little things. We had to consistently do the little things, and that's what I think in the long run we just as a team couldn't do. We had a player at the time, Albert Haynesworth, who was probably single-handedly, what Aaron Donald does now to games.
He was a wrecking crew when he was with the Titans.
This dude, when he was in Tennessee, was a wrecking crew, but of much bigger stature.
Right.
And we pay, what gets lost, well, I guess I should say the reverse. My contract kind of gets lost in the fact that same offseason, he signed a $100 million contract, one of the biggest ever. And so, the expectation was for this dude to be the savior. At the time, you alluded, I signed my deal the same time as Albert Haynesworth. It was under different coaching, different schemes. So Haynesworth was then asked to be a 3-4 nose tackle instead of a 4-3-3 technique. The 4-3-3 technique gets to make plays. They swim move, they go get the quarterback. That's Warren Sapp. The 3-4 nose tackle
takes on double teams.
Yeah, Tony Saragosa.
Yeah.
Haloti Nada. Just sit there, be a big force, take on double teams, just get hit. And that really wasn't Albert Haynesworth's cup of tea. He wanted to go make plays, which I could understand. I wanted to go make plays too. Playmakers want to make plays. And so just that friction and not having him buy in really, really interrupted what would have been a really, really good team. But even nonetheless, we move on a couple years later and we get RG3, who is similar in, I guess, fan hoopla as Michael Vick was. And so immediately the comparisons start being drawn, this fast, mobile quarterback who can also throw it. And Mike and Kyle craft this, and Sean and LaFleur and all those guys on their staff.
All those young coaches you were talking about who are now successful head coaches in the league.
They craft a game plan, a scheme that's, new to the NFL, just the whole RPO and the read option and drift route, which is like the skinny post bang action off of that. I mean, it was it was ingenious to watch them kind of orchestrate that, because it was right after kind of the Wildcat had just taken shape. And so, but we didn't immediately have the success. And I'm going through a whole synopsis of just like the seasons. But we didn't have the success we thought. We was like 3-6, and everybody was like, "Oh man, here we go again." And I mean, that team runs off, I think, 7 in a row.
6 or 7 in a row.
7 in a row. We make it to the playoffs. We got a home game. We won the division. We got Seattle right as they're starting their run of their dynasty. We got them on the ropes. I'm talking on the ropes. We up 13-0, and our quarterback, who I just spoke about, who's running this scheme, and we starting to look like we know what we're doing, tears his ACL. And then that's when, I guess,
that's the beginning of the end. That's when things just imploded with Shanahan in Washington.
Kirk Cousins kind of, we started figuring out who Kirk Cousins was a little bit.
Did you remember what Fred Davis dubbed RG3? Black Jesus. That's how big he was in D.C. He was a city that was starving for a quarterback to lead that team back to the promised land. That rookie year was unlike anything I had ever seen at that point.
And remember, like I keep saying, it did not start very well. 3-6.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken.
It started well for him, though. Like, he came out of the gates quickly. You guys had a game in New Orleans. There's that shot of him on the ground with his arms raised in the air.
His first career throw is to Pierre Garçon for, I think, 80 yards. So you're right, and that's the first throw, and that's the iconic picture.
That's it.
Yeah.
And he was amazing. They guarded him. They protected him from a PR standpoint. It was nearly impossible to get a sit-down, one-on-one interview with RG3. And then once he tore that ACL and he went back to Shanahan and said, listen, I want to be a pocket quarterback. I'm not going to run anymore. And they're like, well, let's work our way to that, right? You can still run a little bit. And then they butted heads, and that was the end of Shanahan, and then eventually the end of RG3 starting. And then you outlasted everybody in D.C.
Yeah, I did. I don't know how I did. But, yeah, that whole RG3 Shanahan deal, it was kind of weird to us in the locker room, because as players, you're like, come on, man, like, be a team player. And, because we're, especially myself at that point in my career, I'm the ultimate team guy. And so, I'm trying to figure out the pulse of the locker room, trying to figure out how we can be a better football team and win more games. And, to hear that a guy's not giving of himself for the team is, it's like, what? Like, what you mean you going in there talking about we just won 10 games and you're saying you want to switch how you
want to change it?
Yeah, like, we're trying to do what you do well, not anything else. And so RG rubbed, a lot of guys the wrong way when that happened. And, I think it started, like you said, the beginning of the end, but it more so started that rift between Kirk Cousins and RG3 and who was better for the team. And, especially because they wanted to change the offense, it was like, all right, well, maybe you're not the best option for this style of offense.
Right.
And as we saw, it ended up, ultimately being Kirk Cousins.
You made a nice transition. I think eventually you can be whatever you want to be, whether it's a general manager, whether it's a head coach in the NFL, and I know that's a path that you're going to carve out at some point, but you've made this transition. Last year you're Fox, you've been with NFL Network this year. I think you knew what to expect for the most part, because you visited all these different networks, you talked to everybody, you had multiple different offers. But what's different? What didn't you expect looking at the league from this lens?
What did not expect? I don't think anything really surprised me. Dan, I think I was pretty much ready for it. Like you said, through the course of my career, I've kind of always enjoyed the media. I hosted shows. Every offseason I kind of made it a point to get out. And, I think what makes me so different, well, not really so different, but what makes me who I am is, like, I try not to make it personal. I try not to make it about me. I try to talk and I try to analyze as if I'm talking about myself on that screen. And if I got beat, the world's seen I got beat. Me saying I got beat is not what a player gets mad about. A player gets mad when he feels as though the analyst makes it personal. Instead of saying your point, what happened, and then moving on. I've been on the receiving end of many, I felt like, personal attacks. And it puts you on the defensive as a player. And having been a player and then being in the media, you kind of know that side and you understand that side. And so I just think I'm authentic, I try to be genuine. Whatever I say, I mean. Like, I don't try to sugarcoat it. I just kind of say what's on my mind. I guess it's a gift and a curse, but it seemed to work for me. Players respect, some of the things I say, and the guys who don't agree with me totally still, respects my opinion, and I respect their opinion. And that's what I think I've matured in, just understanding how to deal with people. We're not going to always agree, but you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. And over time, we'll tell who is right. And we all want to be right.
Do you find yourself softening the blow a little bit with guys that you know?
I don't. And that's what I think is a little different. That's what, when I first got into media, me and Josh Norman had kind of got into it a little bit. And, I guess he wanted me to do him a favor and call him, and instead of saying, what I said. And I'm like, Josh, I was asked a question on TV and I responded to the question. Like, you want me to say, let me call you, let me answer that tomorrow. Let me call Josh first. And so he understood where I was coming from. I understood, 100% where he was coming from. But anytime when a comment's not directed in the most positive light, we all gonna have a problem with it, no matter who it's directed toward. And I've learned to understand that. But, like I said, I try not to be too personal when I'm critical of people, because, like I said, I want, I was once in those shoes and I understand what it's like, especially playing corner. I play a position where, you can get embarrassed in a heartbeat or you can win the game in a heartbeat. So it's not like playing, position where you can hide a little bit. I'm out there on the edges, exposed, and I'm comfortable being in that position.
Right. All right, couple quick hitters before we let you go. Lamar Jackson is what in 5 years?
Still doing what he's doing.
Still running around like he's running now.
Well, yeah, running, but still throwing that thing too. Like, still being who he is, an electric dude at the quarterback position. I don't think he's become just a drop back passer. I think he's still using his legs and he's still using that arm too, and he's making plays in 5 years.
Odell Beckham is what in 5 years?
I hope he's a more mature, well-rounded receiver, man. Just so gifted of an athlete, but just seems to always be in the wrong place at the wrong time, man. But I like OBJ, man. I want nothing but the best for him.
Best wide receiver that you played against in 14 NFL seasons?
Oh, Randy Moss.
No doubt.
Randy Moss, ain't even close. And I played against Jared. Jared was old when I played against him, but yeah, I'd have played against a lot of dudes who got gold jackets, and Randy Moss is at the top of my list for sure.
What about the best athlete you've played with, not named Michael Vick?
Best athlete I've played with.
So many good ones.
Yeah. Oh, man. Probably Sean Taylor. And I won't even say played with, because we only played together on like a Pro Bowl roster. But, man, he was a freaky athlete.
Safety at the size that he was.
Could run like he could. Just athleticism, ball skills. Yeah.
Yeah, I covered him in college and obviously with the Redskins before you got there.
College too. Whew.
Yeah, he was amazing. What about the last thing that you Googled as we sit here?
What was the last thing I Googled? I ain't even got my phone. Let me check my phone out. Let me see. What was the last thing I Googled?
I'm always fascinated by this with people because it could be anything. It could be directions.
Oh, I was watching ESPNU, and they had these high school hoops tournaments. Everybody who knows me knows I was a big basketball dude growing up. Thought I was going to be the next Allen Iverson. I'm from down that way. And so love basketball. And it was a high school tournament on, and it was every game had a connection somehow. And so Paul VI is a high school in Virginia.
Sure.
Paul VI was playing, I think, Sierra Canyon, which was Bron and them team.
Right.
Bron's son team.
Bronny out here in L.A.
Yeah. But the game's in Massachusetts, the tournament. And so that game was on. So I was watching that game. Then I was watching another team. So on my Google is a dude named Jeremy Roach, who was the point guard at Fairfax, who's going to Duke. Or the point guard at Paul VI, who's going to Duke. But I was trying to see how tall he was. He's 6 feet.
Okay.
Because he was out there flying. But, yeah. So I was watching that, and it was a couple other games. My little cousin goes to McEachin in Atlanta. They were playing Mount Verde, who was the #1 team in the country. And then it was another team, Oak Hill, who's in Virginia. Who
powerhouse,
KD went
historical
to.
powerhouse.
Yeah, Melo, Rondo. They were playing, I think, Bishop Gorman. And so it was a lot of the top high school basketball teams in the country. But that was the last thing I Googled. Oh, Jeremy Roach. Shout out Jeremy Roach. He should be at Duke when this thing airs.
I love it. Looking up these high school hoopers. Okay, 2 more. Best advice you've ever received and worst advice you've ever received.
Oh, man.
These are thinkers, because I know you have to go way back over that.
Let me see.
That long career that you've had. Do you put a lot of stuff in your phone?
Advice. I do. Like if I get like a good quote, I will throw it in my phone for sure.
I'm a big list maker. I will put lists in my phone of things that I read and things that I hear.
I even started my book, man, on my phone, The Life and Times of a Shutdown Corner.
Are you writing a book?
Yeah.
How far into it are you?
I ain't that far into it. It's just was on my mind one day, and I was like, man, let me get this.
So will you type it out in your phone with your thumbs, or do you type it out on a laptop on your notes there and then it's in your phone?
I'll do my phone. All right. Play the game with the players you have, not the players you want. Which I thought was real, like...
Where'd that come from?
I don't know. I don't know where some of this stuff comes from. It's just, like, I just have it sometimes. Like, if I see it on anything, I could be watching a TV show, I could hear it, I could read it in a book, and wherever I'm at, I just drop whatever I'm doing. And I'm bad about, like, referencing where I got it from, which I should do a little bit more. Here's another one. 25% of people don't like you and will never like you. 25% of people don't like you but could be persuaded to like you. 25% of people do like you but could be persuaded not to like you. And 25% of people will like you no matter what and will always like you. And I was like, man, like that's kind of profound, because you can't impress everybody. Like, some people not gonna like you no matter what the hell you do.
Right.
And some people, yeah, you might can persuade to like you. But why would you want to persuade somebody to like you that doesn't like you? And then 25% of people can be persuaded not to like you, but they like you now. And then 25% gonna rock with you no matter what. Worry about that 25%. Have their backs, because they're gonna be the ones that have your back.
It's funny, because I hear that and I say to myself, well, so you can have 75% of the people actually like you, but you have to work a little harder to get that. So you take something different away from that than I take from that.
I'm like 75% kick rocks.
Yeah, I'll take my 25.
Yeah, you'll take it. I'll take the 25, yeah.
Well, hopefully I'm one of those 25 for you, man. Hey, D. Hall, thank you so much, my man. I really appreciate it. Have a good week.
Anytime.